I have now owned the G87 M2 for just over 3,000 miles, and I thought it's a really good time to give you my thoughts on it and give you a bit of a no bullshit review on what I like, what I don't like, and some things that we want to change on the car. So it doesn't take a genius to work out that we've already changed a lot on this car, so it's probably not going to be a fair comparison to what it was stock, but I am going to be talking about this car as though it were stock, so just keep that in mind. Whilst we stood outside, let's focus on the exterior of the car. Now, to be fair, this is probably the best angle, and my favourite thing that we've done to the car so far is this rear wing and the whole back end of the car. I think it suits the M2 really, really well. If we skip round to the front, we can talk about something I don't like. What is this? The front grills to me make no sense whatsoever. I genuinely feel like they should have cut off there. There should be like a bar here, almost like a number plate bar. I just don't, I didn't like it when the car came out. I still don't really like it now. Obviously, we've completely changed the front end of this car. I think stock, they're very bland. Like, if you've not got these carbon ducts and you've not got a front splitter, the actual car is just so flat, it doesn't really make sense. We've had to add these bits on, which now they're on there, the car comes together and it looks really well. But generally speaking, it's not a good looking car out of the factory, and I don't think there's any point trying to hide that. The F87 M2 that we've got was a pretty car the minute it rolled off of the forecourt. Here we've had to do a couple of things, and granted now it's got the TR87 front splitter and the ducts. It's a good looking car, but yeah, front end isn't my favourite.
So one quick thing which I really don't like with the G87 M2 is factory. You see this part of the bumper, they kind of like come down and indent, and it gives like a really uneven finish to the front bumper. And that's
it looks like it's got underbite.
Yeah, yeah, it looks like it's got something wrong with its jaw. But, but once you put the TR87 splitter on, it kind of just rounds that whole front end off. Anyway, back to Jack now. I just thought I'd put a bit of input in for no reason.
This car now is sitting absolutely amazing. This rear fitment, amazing. Absolutely over the moon with it. Before that, I'm not joking, it looked like it had nose lift. I would say the arch was up here, and I don't understand why they have to do it. Apparently it's because of snow chains. You need to be able to fit snow chains under. We're not getting snow chains under that, to be honest with you, but apparently that's the regulation that has caused it in Europe. But yeah, the fitment is diabolical from factory, so they desperately, desperately need it. Whilst we're talking about fitment, these rear arches are insane. They are like, I mean, this is probably the most hidden that they'd be in terms of colour because it's just black, but they honestly stand out so bad. And when we had the G42, we were shocked how wide that car is, and you couldn't really understand how they were going to make it much wider, but they have. Obviously, this has the same width as an M4 and an M3 as well, in such a smaller body. So yeah, these look cool. This is a bit of a long list of things that I didn't like, and it's probably coming across that we don't like this car, but we do, trust me. But one other thing is this rear boot lid. Historically, all BMW boot lids have just been sort of flat. This has got this kind of weird, almost mini ducktail into it, which has just made it, just looks a little bit awkward. It's not so offensive to me now, but I genuinely think on the stock car, they're a little bit odd.
Jack's about to take something that I just clocked.
Well, I can't, I'm not taking it then, am I? You just told
Go on, you take it.
So basically, if you look at the DRL, it's this shape, like that, yeah? And then just imagine I've just picked up my headlight and put it upside down there. There's your DRL. That makes a bit more sense to me now. Although it should be facing the other way, yeah, like normal BMW. One thing I'm a massive fan of is actually the whole side profile of this car. I think it's actually one of my favourites of any BM at the moment because it's really nice and flat here, but it's very angular as well, especially over the door, the way the arches are, all of this kind of view here, in my eyes, a 10 out of 10. I genuinely don't think they could have done a better job, particularly the fact it's now got the flat door handles as well, which obviously are a little bit more aerodynamic, but they're just a bit more modern. You know, the G82 M4, the M3, they've all got these kind of clunky door handles, whereas this is taking it from the more modern BMW i4 and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, big fan of the way this looks at the side of the car. The whole side profile is 10 out of 10. You might be wondering what we've actually done to this car, so I'll point them out really quickly. Front splitter, front ducts, CSL DRLs, HRE wheels, TR87 side skirts, TRE mirror covers,
Cobra height adjustable suspension.
Cobra height adjustable rear winglet, got the TR87 rear wing, genuine BMW gloss black badge, Miltech exhaust system with titanium tips, TRE performance rear diffuser, and that's it for the exterior. That's enough of the exterior, let's talk interior. Getting started, first thing, sat in the car, the seating position is absolutely perfect. This has been consistent with BMWs for a while now, they just get it right. So steering wheel, looks amazing, loads of carbon fibre, obviously carbon paddles, you've got your M1, M2, heated steering wheel for when you go outside and you're making snowballs, you need to come inside and warm your hands up, which obviously is a major selling point of the car. But to be honest, my major feedback is going to be how thick these steering wheels are. Just jumping out of the F87 M2, which has quite a nice thin steering wheel, although that is M Performance Alcantara wheels, so it's not a straight fair comparison. You do just notice how thick and chunky this is, and I'm not a massive fan of that. I kind of like the Porsche style thin wheels.
Thinny wheels.
Yeah.
You just like not as much
just
girth.
I'm not a big girth kind of guy. ID08, one of the things that we just spoke about is the smart phone key, which 99.9% of the time works perfectly. The one time it didn't, we were stuck in a car park in Goodwood and I had to disconnect the battery in order to start my car because me stupidly over-relying on technology, to be fair, and I left my actual car key at home. But the main point here is that if you've got a smartphone, you put the BMW key on your phone, you can just chuck it in here and start the car, which is amazing, to be honest. It'd be great if you could fully rely on it, but you can't.
Can I just add a little bit more onto that thing? So just on that situation when Jack couldn't start his car, we was at Goodwood Festival of Speed, which was about 3 hours away.
Yes.
From home.
Yes.
And if we couldn't get the car started because he only bought his phone, not his key, we would have had to drive back 3 hours to get the key.
Admittedly, not my finest hour. Anyway, it does work 99.9% of the time, and I do now keep a spare key in my backpack because...
Have you got a spare key on you now?
No. ID08 looks amazing. Like, it genuinely looks amazing. CarPlay on here is so much better. One of the things that I love about it is that when you set your maps now, you press go, it actually has your Apple Maps on your screen in front of you, which for me, as a bit of a OCD technology freak, that really satisfies me. So big thumbs up. Now, outside of CarPlay, I do just think this is a little bit of a mess because this home screen doesn't really give you anything useful, to be honest. All right, you get these little bits and bobs, but there's nothing really useful there to use. And if you want to change anything, everything is its own app. So it's just a bit confusing. You kind of just want all like your Wi-Fi connections and all of the displays and things like that for there just to be a settings app which you click on and change it all. Instead, you've got to go through here, try and find it, which is impossible whilst you're driving because you literally have to stare at the screen to try and, because they're all the same, all the icons look the same. Yeah, it's just a bit confusing, to be honest with you, and I'm not really a fan of that side of the system. One other thing that I used a lot of in my G42 and also in the F87 as well was the hotkeys that you have here, which is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't know if you guys know that, but in your BMW, they don't just program the radio, you can program actual things to them, which is super handy, super useful, especially when you're driving. If you just want to see what your tyre pressures are and stuff, you can literally just tap it here, or if you want to get up special settings and stuff, it's really helpful. In here, you don't have any of that. All you have is this hotkey section, which essentially when you're on the home screen, you have to be on the home screen to use it, you have to push up and then you can set these shortcuts. Rather than it being a one button here, it's now a 2-button process, and again, you've got to look at the screen and etc. It's just a bit of a faff. There's no need for it. I mean, you could have had those buttons along there if you think about it. One other issue I have with the latest version of ID08 is the EU regulations. I believe this is why from next year, from 2024, in law, they have to have certain speed regulations, which means that when you go over the speed limit, there has to be some level of warning. So every time we drive over 30 mile an hour, if you do 31 mile an hour, the car goes boop, 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 every time you get in the car. Now, at the start, I had no idea how to turn this off. I was basically going in the menus, scrolling through the apps, trying to find driving settings, and then speeding warnings and going in and turning this off. And now, there is a much quicker way that I found online. When you get in the car, if you just press and hold set for 3 seconds, it will come up and say speed warning deactivated. So if you cross over the speed limit by 1 mile an hour, you're not going to get alerted to it anymore. So that's a fun fact if you are a G87 owner. Now, when I originally spec'd the car, I actually did spec carbon bucket seats. That car got delayed by a number of months, so we had to climb through a couple of hoops to get this car when we needed it. And one of the things I had to sacrifice was those carbon buckets for the comfort seats. I was gutted about this. In fact, I actually ordered a set of carbon buckets online, have been scammed for about £5,000 because I thought I could get a set of carbon buckets for that amount. So yeah, let's not get into that. But now I have convinced myself that I'm happy with my decision for not having the carbon buckets, because to be fair, these are really, really comfortable. They actually are very supportive as well. They don't sit as low as the carbon buckets, but for a car that you're using every day, this is definitely the better choice, because even when we have customer cars coming in and out, if they've got the carbon buckets, it's just a faff. If you've got these seats and you were yearning to get the carbon buckets, much like I was, I think once you've got the car, you'll be happy with them. They really are comfortable. They look great. They look a bit chunky on the internet and on the configurator and things like that, but actually in person they look wicked. Now, just because I couldn't let the whole carbon thing go, we are actually developing a full carbon seat back, which will essentially just replace this carbon kind of black plastic trim on the back. So it'll get a carbon look, but they'll just be a lot heavier. So I'm now in the back. The seat is in my position, and to be honest, there is not much room back here at all, unless you've got kids or you've got friends that are amputees and can take their legs off when they get in the car. There's not really a lot of space from back here. My head is also hitting the top, so if you've got anyone that's maybe been wounded and got half a head, they might also be able to fit back here, but otherwise you're kind of lacking for space, to be fair. This isn't that sort of car. Obviously, when they chopped the M4 down, they chopped it on the back here, so the front is exactly the same as your M4 and your M3, but the back is where you've lost all of that space. That's enough on the interior. Let's go and take a little drive and see what we think. Right, fun fact for you, 95% of you guys viewing this video aren't actually subscribed to our YouTube channel, which I don't understand why. We're outside of church doing the Lord's work for you, for these cars, and for the automotive community. And so I plead to you to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can watch more of our content and see more of the Lord's work.
Click the bell notification.
And the bell, and then also drop us a comment, because that really helps the algorithm. Literally just comment and say, I love AUTOID, and then comment and say carbon fibre, and then also comment and say G87 M2 winners AUTOID. And
comment and say Jack's wearing boot cuts.
And did you know that Nathan has prick-sticked pubes to his face for a beard? I'd say immediately it feels like the money you paid for it. It's definitely a very premium car. It feels like you've got out of an M4 or an M3. Like, the interior, just from the driver's perspective, is just as comfortable. Suspension's maybe a little bit firmer than probably the M4 is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But overall, like, the actual quality of the cabin is amazing. You don't feel shortchanged at all. You do feel like you're in a 60-70 grand car, which is obviously what you'd hope for at this price point. Two baselines I can compare this to, basically: the G42 and then the F87, the M240i obviously, and the previous generation M2. Now, we'll do a bit of a deeper dive on what this feels like compared to them, maybe in another video, but just straight out of the box, this car feels a lot more purposeful than probably the G42 does. The G42 M240i is a little bit softer. It's not got the same level of sort of steering feel. This has got a lot more of a communicative steering feel than what that has. Like, you can feel a lot more coming through your hands. Counter to that, it doesn't feel anywhere near the same as the F87 M2. Our M2 that we've got, alright, it's a manual, so it's a little bit more engaging further still. You just feel that it's a more sort of playful and
it's more raw, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a much more raw experience, to be honest. I wouldn't say it's a car that I get out, put the keys on the side and go, I can't wait to go and drive that again. And that's just me being honest. I feel that when I get out of the manual M2, but this I'm not getting that level of engagement from it. This just feels like a very fast, clinical car.
I think the reason why you're saying that though is because it's almost too good. It grips up, it's quick, the brakes are phenomenal on it.
Yeah, agreed.
But all of this stuff kind of numbs your driving experience because you have to drive this car like a nutter to have it on the edge.
You're 100% right, yeah.
Whereas the F87 M2 being a manual,
you've got
Jack just goes around corners and just clutch kicks it all the time.
You can't do that in this.
You can't do it in this.
But obviously, if you got the manual, you probably could. Not got to worry about traction at all. The rear wheels didn't even make a noise. No traction light, nothing. It just puts the power down. Gearbox, that's a good thing to talk about. When you get that down into Sports Plus mode, and the gearboxing is in its most aggressive settings. You've got 3 settings. You've got the standard, second, third. When you put it into its most aggressive setting, that gear change is so much more aggressive than what you've seen in the M4 and the M3. I don't know if they've changed the tuning or something with it. If I get down into the gears a bit more, to make my point a bit more, guys.
Yeah, you can actually feel.
Yeah.
So the stock M4, you couldn't really feel a shift at all as you change gear, even when you're in that stage 3 gearbox thing on this. But now there's like a bit more of a delay.
Sounds like someone's banging a drum. What you felt with the N55 and potentially the S55 is that there's this kind of surge of power around sort of 3,000 RPM, 3,500 RPM. This just seems to have it consistently across the board, I would say.
Comes in really quick, low end and high end.
Yeah.
Twin turbo setup.
Yeah. So we're just going to test a quick launch now. That was a nice launch.
Yeah. Right, so
laid a couple of 11s.
As I said earlier, sometimes the BMWs don't like launching.
It is weird, isn't it? That come up earlier and
yeah, it is just strange. But Jack just launched into a rolling burnout.
Yeah. When you're actually under load and under power, this is you can hold it with your fingertips.
It's not like the F80s. The F80s were like
ballistic.
A little bit snappy. This is a lot more smooth when the wheels are actually spinning.
100%.
I don't know how, even though it's a shorter wheelbase.
I wonder if this is because it's a bit heavier, because it is definitely heavier than an F80. But also, I just think that maybe the way that they've got the diff sort of just mapped on this car, it's just a bit more controllable. Let's just get to the brakes. The brakes feel insane, like they're so good. And the fact that you can, this was a bit bizarre to me coming from cars of the past, like jumping into modern generation M3, M4 and this, being able to actually control your brake feel is crazy. To have a comfort setting and a sports setting, you can genuinely feel how much more communicative the sports brake setting actually feels. In terms of actually driving the car, I've yet to overheat the brakes on the road. Like on the track it'll probably be different, you know, if I properly go for it I'll probably need new pads and new fluid and stuff, but out the box they've been quite good, whereas in the past pads, even on like the F87, they were useless, the stock pads. You couldn't do anything with them. These feel a little bit more better suited to the car.
So I've just nicked Jack's seat because I wanted to give a quick overview compared to the G87 M4 X-Drive. Obviously Jack's he's got the F87 M2 and the G42 M240i. But as I said earlier, first thing, when you get in the car, it feels like I'm driving the exact same car, except for mine's got the ID7 and not the ID08. Yeah, one massive thing that I've noticed with this is, even though the M4 is heavier, being X-Drive and stuff like that, it somehow feels slightly more nimble round corners than in my opinion, than what the M2 does, even though this is like a bit of a smaller car and stuff like that. But
do you think that's because you might know the car though? You're more happy to drive it?
No, it ain't. It's like when you're like pinging it in and out of corners. I think it's just because of the X-Drive, you can literally swing it in faster and exit faster, and it gives it that bit more of like a in and out feeling. And another thing to mention, this car stock for the M4, when my M4 was stock, feels exactly the same power-wise, power delivery-wise. It doesn't feel like it's got a power cut.
Compared to your stock M4?
Compared to when my M4 was stock. It's the ultimate platform for tuning.
Yeah, 100%.
Out of the box, none. That's the exact same with my M4. The X-Drive M4, got in it, it does everything really, really well, but you kind of lose the whole feel of everything because it just does it all so well.
If you go back to when you first picked that car up,
Yeah.
you just jumped out the Supra,
Yeah.
and it was a week into you owning it, and I remember sat across to you at the office and I said, how are you finding the car then? And you're like, oh, I don't know, you know, I think I preferred the Supra.
Yeah, but that's because the Supra was 550 brake.
Yeah, but
sliding all over the place.
completely. And I think it was one of those things like you needed to do something to the car.
But now it's 750 brake.
Now it's no comparison, is it?
No, you can't compare it. But it is a little bit scary now.
Obviously, I think one of the also things to mention as well is that you in order to get, obviously the M4 is a more expensive car than the Supra was.
Yeah.
Think about how much money you had to spend to get the Supra to that place.
Oh, exactly. Tuning wise, for the amount of money you got to put in, you could spend 3.5 grand on a G87 M2 and you've got over 700 brake horsepower.
Yeah, you've got
to do that on a
power.
Supra, you're looking at like 12 grand. But obviously the car is a lot cheaper. And another thing to note about this car is me and Jack sometimes like to get a little bit slidey, don't we?
Yeah, a little bit.
Every now and then. The M4, where it's X-Drive, has no steering lock at all. So it means that the moment you push it a little bit too much angle on it, you spin the car out and you're done. With the M2, it's got loads of steering lock and it makes it out of the box. If you actually care about drifting, probably not many people would actually be drifting this.
All those one of you watching this
This is a much better drift car.
Yeah, but actually, if you've got a rear-wheel drive M4,
then that'd
be better.
Yeah, no.
Because that's got the longer
wheelbase.
Yeah, I mean, that gives you a bit of an overall sense. I think the general impressions and general driving impressions of this car is that for a 2023 sports car of this caliber, and it sits in a class of its own anyway, just because of the actual size of the car and what it offers and the performance and stuff, but as an actual performance and sports car, it's excellent.
Yeah.
You know, if you're trying to compare it to cars of yesteryear where they've got more steering feel, etc, 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 it's not really a fair comparison. You have to compare it to what's on offer today, and this has to be the best package there is for a small sports car.
It does a bit of everything.
It does a bit of everything.
It's a good all-round car. It's GT4 lap times, but can go to the shops.
100%, yeah.
With your kids, just kids though, not...
Yeah, or amputees. Hopefully that was handy, you guys, anyway. Hopefully you agree with some of the points I've had. Maybe you disagree with some of the points. Maybe I'm well short of the mark. I'm by no means a car reviewer, so I'm open to any criticisms you might have. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. See you in the next one.